Kick it off. Thank you for everyone taking some time to celebrate with us our 60th anniversary. I would also like to thank and acknowledge our VIPs here. First, ASIS President Godfried Hendriks, our Vice President, Regional Vice President Mike Benton, and the Wards Chapter Committee Chapter John Gann. Just a few little notes beforehand. So I was looking on what else is celebrating their 60th anniversary this year, and just a few items was the Etch-a-Sketch, 60 years, Bono, Jennifer Gray, I'm trying to think of who else, but those are some of the individuals. So we've been around for a while, but you know, some of those people are still looking pretty good. So we have a lot of life and opportunities to grow our chapter even further. So I already did the welcomes to everyone that came, and appreciate it. So this is our charter. We requested the charter this year. I contacted, so I couldn't find the original charter. So it might be out there, it might be in someone's attic. We might be able to locate it someday. But thankfully, International, when I contacted them, if they had a copy of the charter, they sent me this one. This is, so obviously it's not the original charter, but it's nice to have the charter and show what day that we were founded, which is the 6th of October, 1960. And so again, we've done a lot of things. The chapter has grown, and we continue to be relatively strong, especially our size of city and whatnot. So some business. I'd like to acknowledge Steven Sveka. He's the winner of the KS Art Chapter's ASIS Foundation Accelerator Scholarship. Congratulations. Remind me, you're planning to do the PSP and then work on the CPP, is that correct?
That is correct. Scheduled the PSP for January 5th, and then my goal is probably June to take the CPP.
Yeah, congratulations on that. That's a great award. It is a fantastic thing that foundation has provided us that we are able to give to our chapter members. In addition, there's plenty of people with they have already got their certifications through those. Reach out to the chat, reach out to the folks, and anyone that has been certified, especially recently, reach out to Stephen and help him out during his studying. I'm sure I will do that. And Mike recently, this past few months ago, he was doing virtual online training, and I haven't talked to him yet, so this is putting him on the spot, but I'm sure we're going to continue trying to have our prep sessions for next year.
Yeah, we'll start that again after the first of the year, Rick, and then we'll move into that. I did an APP study group too for a small group of folks that were interested in that. And then Stephen working with a captain from KC-ASIS that they might get an early start on the CPP preparation. So I'll continue with the prep courses and the study sessions. So you can look at it for that after the first of the year.
Very good. Well, congratulations again there, Stephen.
Thank you. It's an honor. And Mike, just so you know, I actually spoke with Jason about 30 minutes ago. Had a great conversation. When he gets back from Ohio, we're going to meet up and put together a game plan for the studying.
Yeah, I think it's for most of us that have gotten it. You know, it's good to kind of share some of the reading and summaries and reviews and bounce things off one another. It helps in that review. So, congratulations, Stephen. I'm sure you'll represent the chapter well.
Do my best. Thank you.
The second item on here, right now I'm working with Amy Hink, the chair for the St. Louis chapter. We're going to put together, we are putting together a joint submission for the Roy Board's Security Foundation grant. For folks that don't know what it is, ASIS International will select the winner for the grant, and it will be a 2-day locally delivered security education program. And so we're looking, putting together a joint submission, looking to, if we do win it, we would like to maybe host it in Columbia, so it'll be between the 2 chapters, and it'll be a 2-day event there. So we're pretty excited about that. We're combining all of our information, and she and I have been working that pretty closely, and we'll have that done fairly shortly and submitted. And then is there anyone from the committees that would like to say anything before we move on? Brandy, I know you're I saw that you're on.
Yeah, I have no new updates. Women in security, we are still working on some education stuff. Still trying to get some speakers, but that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, it seems like at the end of the year, everyone's kind of
Kind of wearing down.
wearing down. And
I know we're still looking at trying to go with May for our
Yep.
golf tournament. And kind of seeing how it plays out, but we'll start pushing it hopefully in December and January. We'll just get to kind of see how the roles play out with the COVID as it changes into 2021. And then I also saw on an update, Rick, that you still want to have that virtual holiday happy hour. Is that something that you're looking at for December?
Yep.
And then we brought it up in the last board meeting, and somehow I ended up being in charge of that or something. I don't know how I got
Well, you and Jared, so
Oh,
you might
when Jared's eyebrows like, what? What? I heard my name.
on there. An item that kind of put John on the spot, but so for technology showcase, we signed a contract with Harris, and so we have it scheduled now for August 2021. John, is there anything? I know you guys haven't had too much more.
No, we're looking forward to it. Rick, our committee, James Schwartz, Jason Shields, Todd Tinbrink, and myself. Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that the first week in September, or did it actually kick back to August? Jason's on mute. So
It might have been.
but anyway, we're looking forward to it.
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I think we're scheduled there for the regular June timeframe, correct?
No.
It's
Contract I signed was definitely for fall.
I thought it was the first Thursday in September, but
Yeah, that might be right. I knew we were bouncing back between August and September, so I should.
I'm sorry, because that was the direction from National. You're correct. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Is the direction from who?
National.
Yeah, National. There was nothing could be scheduled before like July, I think, of 2021. Wasn't that right, Rick?
Right. Correct.
for in-person gathering.
Waivers and all that. I think this gives us some good opportunity to plan for a pretty big event. My talking with the committee there, you know, it was an opportunity to really kind of get something put together and kind of exciting. I mean, past years have been very exciting, so I'm not taking anything away from there, but this is an opportunity to really help let's see what the pandemic where we're at, and try to push as much more later into the year to give us some opportunities to, especially for an indoor event like that.
Well, we also probably need to make sure we keep in contact with headquarters as well, because I don't know what their plans are for GSX. We want to make sure that we don't, and John, Jason, you guys, whoever's on the committee, if they plan on having an in-person GSX, do we want it to be the same month?
We've already discussed that, and we know that's a challenge, but I'm talking with, from our discussions before, we feel that from a regional aspect that we'll still have a really good turnout to come to our event, and then people might be able to do both events. So, yeah, it was something that we brought up and talked through, but it was just one of those, like, later we could go in the year. We were worried about trying to do it in early October, which would definitely probably conflict with the GSX. And then what we were talking about for November, if we do win the grant, that's when we would like to schedule it for a later event. So we're also working with St. Louis. They have a big event in October. So it was kind of trying to works regionally and internationally. So,
Cool.
So looking at 2021, trying to look forward, I put out multiple emails. Right now, we have 3 folks that are looking for the board elections. Names should not be a surprise. We've talked about it. The board, vast majority of the board would like to stay on for another year, since how can I say it? It feels like half a year by doing everything virtual. So maybe if everything's virtual next year, so it'll be put together, be 1 year. But I'm teasing because actually I feel it's harder to do stuff virtual than actually doing it in person. But the board, we have a lot of ideas still, and we still have a lot of like to push forward with things. Jared wanted to move to the secretary role, so right now we have a vacancy in the treasurer role. Sean Burns, who I think I saw those on here, he would have liked to stay on the board, but he right now with his job commitments, trying to do these commitments is a little bit on he's not able to commit to being a board member as much. But I have asked him to look at maybe one of the committees, but I'm sure we're going to continue seeing Sean around. So, but if anyone is interested in treasurer, or if they're interested in any of the other positions, if they could send me an email, tell me what position they would like, and then I'll put together a virtual poll voting, and then we'll send it out, and by November, select the new board. In addition, if you know someone that wants to be the treasurer, be a good fit. I'm not looking at anyone specifically, but someone that's maybe going to get their certification very shortly. You know, this is your CEO.
Not to name any names.
That just, you know, want a scholarship from the chapter, might want to look at, you know, participating in the chapter and a little bit more in it.
I absolutely want to. Just to let you guys know, I am a United States Marine, so obviously math isn't my strong point. So,
well, trust me, I was a treasurer at one point too, and I was U.S. Army 82nd Airborne. So, I mean, I fell on my head a few times, so I didn't screw it up too bad.
Airborne. I'll reach out to you regarding it.
There's other positions, not to put you on the spot, but there are. So the treasurer is one that.
But he sure did.
Again?
No, you said not to put you on the spot, but I said, but you sure did.
I didn't call it names. There's all kinds of people that got scholarships recently. But the second item is, one thing I'm really proud of what we've done this year is that we got a lot of people start volunteering through the committees. And I think it's a great system and getting new ideas. I know it was kind of more of a challenge, again, doing everything virtual. Like our board meetings, hands down, in person, so much better. A lot of ideas get thrown out there. We're trying to do it online. It gets a little bit, I won't say stale, but I think people are getting tired of Zoom calls. But there's a lot of committees out there. Great way to start getting your feet into volunteering with the chapter and and just getting more involved with the ASIS. So I know we have some of the committee chairs on here right now. I'm not replacing anyone, but what I am asking people is like start thinking about committees. Once the new board is in place, they'll start the process of selecting people for the committees and putting their names in there. If we're lucky to be voted back in, I'll start working with all the chairs, see if they want to still continue to be on the committees. But I'm also asking that folks, we don't need to have only one person per committee. I mean, we can have multiple people on there and, develop new ideas and whatnot. So, I'm going to, and whoever the new board is, 2021 board, they can look at the committees and determine what makes sense. Maybe take some out, put some in. For instance, I just took the last year's committee roster. We have webmaster and communications. I know talking with John, that's probably for the elections that they're just the awards for next year. They're getting away from separate awards and just kind of combining it to one communications award, and probably do the same thing for the committees. Because I found myself, because I did a lot of the webmaster in the newsletter, I used the same information from one format to a different format, so it wasn't really different between it was just a means of communicating the information, but the information was same, just in different places. So I think that might be one that where we just start combining and to make a little bit more sense to the committees. But I digress. Just start thinking about committees and volunteering and starting to support the chapter. Any questions? Any volunteers? All right, so the last item before I turn it over to John, our website store is open. I do have coins. We have the coins and glasses on there. So right now, $10 per coin. That basically covers for the making of it and a little bit that goes back to our training, our education fund. And $3 per glass. I'm just that is just the cost that we took on for the glasses. The glasses were supposed to be part of our. It was supposed to be part of our.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Just so everybody's clear, those glasses at $3 per come empty. You don't get the Boulevard Ale in there. So just so everybody knows that. No misunderstanding. Because I may be the one delivering some of them, so I don't want to have an incident.
Yeah.
Bring a
Thank you
six-pack
for
with you.
clarifying.
The glasses were supposed to go out as part of attending our trivia night or yearly trivia event that was supposed to happen in April. Obviously, it didn't happen, but Boulevard still had them done. So I have right now about 300 glasses in my garage. So I'm looking forward to getting them out of there. But we decided that we weren't going to try to use it as a fundraiser. We were just selling them at cost. And I like to say, someone online bought 4 of them. So thank you very much, Ms. Gray.
So Rick, what's the process to purchase those items? How do we get them shipped to us, or the next board meeting, or how's that work?
Yeah, so the coins will ship. So the coins, if you do buy them and you want it shipped, it's $15. We don't have a business post office, so we're just using the mail. Glasses, I was like, man, that is going to cost a lot of money just for a $3 glass. What we will do for the glasses, like if you buy them, we'll arrange a time to deliver them. We'll find a meeting place, we'll deliver them. And if we have enough, we might even just like, hey, everyone meet up here Saturday, and we'll distribute them at that time. Tomorrow, Bill and I are going to link up, and I'm going to give him basically half the classes. So he could try to deliver items on the south side of Kansas City, and I'll try to hit the north side of Kansas City. And we'll work with people to get them to you.
Okay.
All right, that being said, now for this reason why we're here. I'd like to introduce our historian, John Crumey, and he put some slides together about the last 6 years.
Well, thanks, Rick. I also want to thank the chapter officers of Chapter 50 as well here in Kansas City. Also, it goes without saying, I couldn't have done this without the input from Mike Betton, John Gann, Roger Palmer, and Pat Quinn, who all had a lot of historical data to contribute. So we appreciate that very much.
Does that
Our
mean
chapter-
we're old?
Pretty much, yes. So our chapter, as Rick said, was chartered on October 6, 1960, and has become one of the largest Midwest chapters of ASIS International. We were founded by a gentleman named Virgil Roselle, who was our chairman, George Dane, our vice chairman, Ray White Turkey, the secretary, and John Barrett, our treasurer. So that goes back our 60 years and how we got started. I'm also remiss by not mentioning too, it's an honor to have Godfried with us today as well. So we thank you for your participation and being a part of our 60th anniversary. Next slide, please. So one of the things that the Kansas City chapter has become known for is our annual golf tournament. This particular slide, going back to 2004, shows you that particular year we raised over $13,000 for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And our own John Gann has chaired and worked that activity for over 20 years now. So we thank him for and his committee for the contribution that he's made. One of the things that was so important to John in the chapter, going back a long time, was the fact that that money that was raised by our ASIS golfers here in Kansas City stayed in Kansas City for a long, long time. And that was a great year in 2004 that on our 5th annual, we raised $13,000. Next slide. So Fred Hall was our chairman of the chapter in 2002. This is just a look back at a presentation he made for a scholarship to a University of Central Missouri recipient who was studying criminal justice, Christine Butcher. And as you can see, Christine was a very intelligent student with a 4.0 GPA. Scholarships are extremely important. We'll talk a little bit more about those. Next slide. In 2007, Kathy Bone was our chapter chair here in Kansas City, and she was presenting the Security Professional of the Year to Dennis Smith, who was the 2005 chapter chairman. Dennis was a huge part in helping the chapter become an awardee of the IB Hale Chapter of the Year Award, Website of the Year, and Newsletter of the Year Award, particularly very early in the new century as we started out in the early 2000s. Next slide. Well, more currently, in 2016, the chapter was the recipient of the MATHEW SIMEONE Award, and our own Mike Betton can be seen there on the far left in that picture. And this was an award that was given for the cooperation between the private and public partnerships of law enforcement and security. Mike, did I say that right? Did I pronounce Matthew's name correctly?
John, you might have, it's Simone, isn't it?
Simone,
Matthew.
okay. I wasn't sure. Matthew
Yep.
Simone Award. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Next slide. Well, the IB Hale Chapter of the Year Award went to the Kansas City chapter as a Group 5 winner in 2008. But 2006, 7, and 9, we were also honorable mention. We were honorable mention in 2009 for Chapter Newsletter of the Year, but we were the winner from 2004 through 2008. And then finally, the Website of the Year winner in 2005, but we received honorable mention in 2003, 4, 7, 8, and 9. So as you can see, the chapter was extremely active and doing great things. Mark Jacobs was the winner of the Alan J. Cross Award in 2009. Next slide. Well, you know, what's a good chapter without a party? And we were no exception in Kansas City. Our holiday party has always been something that everybody looks forward to. You can see John and his wife, Tammy, pictured when John was the chairman in 2003. The picture there at the bottom.
Where in the world did you find that?
Well, you know, it's amazing what we have in the archives, John. But we also, you know, we would be remiss if we didn't remember and talk a little bit about a gentleman named Ralph Pusey. Ralph was one of the greatest contributors to the Kansas City chapter when he initiated the Ralph Pusey Scholarship Award. Ralph was a dedicated security practitioner who managed offices for Wells Fargo and Barton Protective Services in Kansas City. Ralph always said that the security industry had been very good to him and he wanted to give back. The best way he felt he could do that was to establish a scholarship fund. Ralph donated $10,000 of his own money and established the fund so that the interest that was generated from the principal would be paid in scholarships to students each year who were preparing to enter the security industry. Those early winners were from the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg, as UCM had a well-recognized program in industrial security. The scholarship was established in 2000, and Ralph announced that scholarship at one of the ASIS holiday parties going back into 2000. The first recipient was in 2001, and the scholarship amount was $500. Those amounts were, in the early days, $500 to $550 to each winner. But for those of you who knew Ralph, he was larger than life. When he came into the room at a ASIS meeting, everybody knew Ralph. That's why it was no surprise to anyone that he served as the holiday party auctioneer at the annual ASIS Christmas party for many years. That's a picture of Ralph on the left, and I'm pretty sure Ralph was probably auctioneering a bottle of wine at that point. But the party was always a great success because everybody left with gifts. Compliments of Charlie Sartain, who was the loss prevention manager at the Jones Store Company and a former Kansas City, Missouri police officer. Charlie served as our chapter chair in 1971. The Christmas party would average no fewer than 100 people attending, and the Hereford House at 20th and Grand, which unfortunately is no longer there, was the site of many of those parties, particularly in the 1990s. Next slide, please. Somebody mentioned Steve Brown a minute ago at the outset of our conversation. Steve was the chairman of our chapter when we celebrated on October 6, 2010, for 50 years as a chapter. Slide might be a little bit hard to read, I understand, but Steve was chairman. Vice chairman was Brandon Keel. Our secretary was Catherine Bartunik. All three of those folks, I believe, were from Burns and McDonnell. Then, of course, Jason Shields, who's on the call today, was the treasurer going back to 2010. Next slide, please. Before we talk about Vendors Day and how much activity vendors and what they have meant to the chapter, I want to talk a little bit about Roger Palmer, who just recently retired from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas, who's a longtime member of the Topeka chapter and the Kansas City chapter. Roger served as the regional ASIS vice president from 1990 to 1992. Roger was preceded in this role by Dave Vogel, who's still active in the security industry today. Dave was with Southwestern Bell. He served in 1988 and 1989. Carl Bender, who some of you may remember, who was retired from the United States Air Force. He was also security manager at Monsanto and Commerce Bank security manager in St. Louis. He served the Kansas City chapter as the regional vice president all through the 1980s. I had the pleasure to follow Roger as the regional vice president in 1993 and 1994. The regional vice president's role was to support the local chapters and provide continuity between chapters, much what Rick talked about at the outset of today's discussion, what we might be doing with the St. Louis chapter. We were sharing ideas and we were encouraging chapters to partake in all the resources provided by ASIS headquarters and the foundation. In 1993, and this may be the last time, I'm not really sure, Godfried, but Chad Ray, who was the international president of ASIS in 93, visited the Kansas City and Topeka chapters. That was an exciting time for our chapter, as those visits from the international president were few and far between. And I personally, Chad gave me my first ASIS gold pin when he came out to the Kansas City chapter in 93. So that was a fun time. The slide that you see on the screen goes back to 2002. ASIS Chairman Terry Foster had an idea for an annual Vendors Day where we were showing appreciation for the vendor community as a part of ASIS. Some of you may remember that in the early days, and I don't know exactly what date this changed, ASIS members were only those who were practitioners of security. Vendors were not allowed to be voting members of ASIS in those early days. But that had all changed prior to 2002. So this is just a slide that shows some of the appreciation that Terry was showing to Larry Wisher, Amy Jeffries, along with myself in those early years as being a vendor of ASIS. Next slide, please. Well, Vendor Day has taken on a whole new look. About 7 years ago, James Schwartz, Jason Shields, Todd Tinbrink, they all put together the ASIS Physical Security Showcase. That started, I believe, in 2013, and had it not been for the pandemic, we would have celebrated our 7th anniversary of that this summer. As Jason said earlier, that goes on every June, and we're pleased to tell everyone, as Rick mentioned earlier, that we're coming back in 2021. The vendor showcase will be in early September once again at Harris. We average 160 to 180 people with 25 to 26 vendors every year at that show. So it's just a great event for all of our members and our guests of ASIS.
Hey, John and Jason, I want to commend you guys on the work you've done in that particular venue. Every year I kind of think it might drop off, but it's just gotten better. So I know you work hard on it, and you deserve acknowledgments on the work you've done. It's paid off. You've done a good job.
Well, thank
Thanks,
you,
Mike.
Very kind of it. And James Schwartz, he's who's on here today too. I don't think Todd's with us, but those guys are the ones who make it happen. It's really easy for me because everybody knows what they have to do. Jason's our contract guy at Harris, along with so many other things that he sends out. James, he's our graphics guy, and but thank you, Mike, for the kind remarks and how the showcase has grown through the years. Next slide, please. This is just the a little bit more of the history of the showcase and to show you some of the vendors that always participated. And we're kind of proud of the fact that we have returning vendors each year. Yes, we always get some new ones, which is important to introduce some new blood, but we have a lot of returning vendors, and we have some platinum sponsors, some of the bigger companies, some of our manufacturers who always step up to support our chapter. Next slide, please. This gives you a little look back at the chapter starting in 1961, running through 2010. These people were the chairman of our chapter. And again, I know it's hard to see, but some of the guys that are on the call today have been, probably almost every one of them, every one of you have been a chapter chairman, like Jason. I see here, I can't remember Jason's exact year. I saw his name a minute ago, that he was chairman. And I mentioned Ralph Pusey earlier. He was chairman in 1979, and that's how far back it goes. Next slide. This is a really interesting look back. This slide was prepared for the 50th anniversary. At that time, we had two gentlemen, Bob Ross and Bob Ruther, who were 40+ year members of ASIS at that time. And then it goes down from there, 30+, 20+, 10+ years, and of course more current, 1 to 9 years. But that gives you a little look at the people. Next slide. We'll just go through. This is some of the members, and as you kind of saw that color coordination, this is just the break of the number of years of service. So Rick, we can go through these next few slides real quick. So, you know, thank you, Rick, for the opportunity, because it was really fun to kind of look back and see some of those names, and of course some of those people that are who are no longer with us, who were such an important part of our chapter. But for those who, you know, I saw something that Rick just sent out the other day about how active our chapter is, and that I think we had new members. I don't know how many, Rick, new members we had this year, but there were at least 5 or 6 or more. It's probably more than that. But this gives you some idea of how important ASIS is, not only to our membership, but to our community, and also to our industry and what it's done for so long. So thank you for that opportunity, and I hope you enjoyed this kind of look back over the last 60 years.
Good job. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you, John. That was a great, going back and looking at the history and seeing everyone that has been part of this chapter, where we're coming from, where we're going to. Like, you know, like a good house is really good to, you know, have a good foundation, and everyone that, I mean, John mentioned it, a lot of those leaders that he presented, that experience, that they're still very involved with the chapter, and that's really impressive. It has been very helpful for me to come back and like, hey, what did we do before? How do we do it? And what are some new ideas to go forward? So, John, I thank you, but I also like to thank everyone else that's on this call to be in such support to our chapter.
Thank you. And Doug Head, I should have mentioned you. I can't remember what year, but you're pretty current as a chairman, I know. What year were you chairman, Doug? You're on mute.
2014.
No, 2014. Thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, with no further ado, our guest speaker is the president of ASIS International, Godfried Hendriks. There's his bio on there. I'll let people read it for themselves. I reached out to International at the beginning of this year, and I explained this is going to be our 60th anniversary. And at that time, it was pre-COVID. And within a week, International came back, and because I asked, like, could someone from International come and talk to us? Maybe come up to the chapter for our meeting in October and give a presentation, talk to us to celebrate our 60th anniversary. Less than a week later, it was very short. Just like, yes, Godfried has said that he would love to come up to Kansas City. So for what I was just asking, just a leader from International, and we got the president, which just says in spades his support to the local chapters and the support to ASIS. So I really appreciate it. Mr. Hendriks, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rick, and it's great to be here. Clearly, I'm very disappointed that I couldn't be with you in a live session. As John knows, John and I have a shared history in volunteer leadership. We were RVPs and SRVPs at the same time, and we worked together in the awards committee. So I really have a passion for regions and chapters. So when Judy, the executive assistant, approached me with the request, I said, yes, please, I would love to go to Kansas City and meet the chapter and celebrate with them. And yeah, that was before COVID, so that was a bit of a drawback. But happy to be here with you virtual. As I mentioned earlier today, I guess that since March I am a virtual president, and I will probably be so until the end of the year. But at least I had the luck that we still had our January meeting where everyone met each other live, and at least John was there. Some I think Mike was there too. But anyhow, some more of you might have been there, and that was a great party to start the year. So interesting. I heard a few things that resonate very well with me. I became a member in 1992. At that time, I come from the Netherlands, so that explains my accent. Apologies for that. And I was working with mainly the protection of petrol stations in the Netherlands, working with Shell and Exxon Mobil and all of these oil companies and protecting their sites. And at a certain moment, we started importing products, security products from Dallas in Texas. And so I traveled there regularly, and one of the folks in Dallas asked me if I was a member of ASIS. And this was like, I think it was 1991 or 1992, early 1992. And I said, I've never heard of ASIS. So he explained to me all about ASIS, and I was like, oh wow, I don't even know if we have ASIS in the Netherlands. So I had to find it out, and this was a time clearly when we didn't have the internet, so it was a little bit more difficult to find it out. And it was also the time, if you wanted to become a member of ASIS, you needed 2 signatures, otherwise you couldn't become a member. So my friend from Dallas basically gave me the form and put a signature on that, but I didn't have a second signature. So I found out that the secretary of the chapter in the Netherlands was the chief of the security of our gas production company. And he was a former executive of our intelligence services. So I called him and introduced myself and said, I would like to become a member. And so he said, okay, let me give me a week and I'll get back to you. So clearly I was checked out, and they apparently allowed me to become a member. So he was my second signature. So I became a member in 1992. And that was a really a way different time, as you mentioned. Being a vendor, being a supplier of security systems, I was not allowed to become like a regular member. I believe it was called an associate member. So you were welcomed, but you couldn't vote, and that clearly all changed later. It was kind of funny, by the way. So I became a member in 1992, and 2 months ago I had a call with the West Africa young professionals. So they had a lot of young professionals from West Africa, and we we chatted, and I told them that I was a member from 1992. And at a certain moment, one of them reminded me that most of the young professionals were born in 1992 or around that year. So that was a bit shocking to be confronted with your age that way, but it's also kind of funny. So I became a member, met a lot of my friends there, and I basically told them, why have you never spoken to me about ASIS in the Netherlands? And they just didn't think about it. But from that moment on, I was not just their vendor, but I was also a colleague and a friend from ASIS, and they learned me so much. And so in this first years that I was a member in the chapter, and we changed it to a Benelux chapter. So we are a chapter that has basically 3 countries: Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I live in the Netherlands, but probably our area is smaller than most of your states. So if I drive from the northern tip to the most southern tip, it's like a 5 hours drive. It's no more than that. So even though we have 3 countries and 3 languages in that small space, it is probably smaller in area than many of your states. So after a while, I started studying for my CPP, and being a part of a CPP study group immediately brings you more closer to your fellow members, and you form this camaraderie where you have this common goal, working together to get the CPP. And we were with a group of, I think 15 people that started there. And shortly after that, Edward Emde, who became the first non-North American president in 2012, was the chapter chair at that time. And so he asked me if I was willing to contribute to the chapter. And I said, well, after being a consumer of information and help for 10 years in 2002, it's now my time to do something back for the chapter, and I would love to do something back, but I have a busy job, so how much time will this take? And so Edward said, well, probably a few hours every month. I was like, well, that's not too bad. So fast forward, now I'm spending 2 days a week on ASIS. So I always, when I see Edward, I remind him about that and tease him about it. But also always mention that it's self-chosen punishment, because once you are within that volunteer leadership role, you become so much closer to everyone. And as John also remembers, I still think that we had the best RVP SRV group in the world that we had at that time. And we were friends, and so I have friends all over the world just from that few years that we were RVP and SRVP, and also in the chapter. So to me, that's become one of the great things of being a volunteer leader within ASIS. And then from one thing you roll in the next thing, and before you know, it really takes a lot of time. A few years ago, I was approached by Revolution Retail Systems, also from Dallas, basically a spin-off of the company that I used to do business with in the early 90s. And they asked me to go and work for them and try to replicate the success that they have in the US, because Revolution Retail Systems make cash management systems, which you can find in every Walmart you have in the States and also in Canada, and every Target, and there's many more brands that you'll know where they use the cash management systems from Revolution Retail Systems. So they hired me, see if we could replicate that success in Europe. So that's my job at the moment. But they offered me a salary, and so I said, well, yeah, that sounds pretty good, but I would like to have 80% of that. And so they looked at me and thought, well, they probably thought, we knew the Dutch are crazy, but we never had someone asking for less money instead of more money. So they were like, well, why? And so I explained to them that I had committed to become the president of ASIS in 2020, and that cost me about 2 days a week, and 1 day I could do in the weekend, but that I needed the 1 day during the week, and that I just didn't feel right to ask them to pay me for that. So we made a deal, and I think it's a win-win. Also because history learns that quite a number of presidents ASIS presidents have lost their job in the year of their presidency. So I was very anxious not to be one of them. So I think this setup was kind of a win-win for both for the company as well for myself. So I have 52 days a year that I can spend on travel for ASIS and things like that. So the original plan was to visit 6 continents this year. And you mentioned the program, the 2-day program, the Roy Borders program, which was going to take place next month in Paraguay. So I was planning to go there, going to Australia. And so when I got the invitation for your anniversary, it was very well planned, because after Atlanta, GSX, I was going to go to Dallas to meet with my colleagues, catch up, and maybe have a few days of vacation in between, and then fly to Kansas for the celebrations, and then fly back from Kansas to home. But clearly that all did not happen. But the silver lining, and as some of you that attended the last town hall, I explained that silver lining to me is such a great expression, and being an optimist, I guess I always see silver linings everywhere, and I also share that the saying is so nice to me, because in Dutch we just say de wolken schijnen achter de zon, which just means the sun shines behind the cloud. But the silver lining really adds something where you can really visualize the light and the positive things. So that's why I love that expression, silver linings. So I think one of the silver linings this year has been that we live in this year, because someone mentioned to me, just imagine that we would have this pandemic 20 years ago, when we would have dial-up internet and an old Nokia phone, where you could we would not have been able to communicate the way we do now. And as much as we all prefer to see each other, be together, give a hug, have a glass of wine together, have a cup of coffee together, I think this is the second best. And at least now we have this ability to be in contact with each other and share our story, share our experiences, help each other. So it's happy that it's 2020, that we have high-speed internet, that we have all of the technology to still be in contact. So this year I've been able to visit way more chapters than I would otherwise be able to do, because clearly with traveling, it's very difficult to travel to the other side of the world just for a one-day meeting. So now I can, like today I'm with you, and a little bit later today I got an invitation from the Southern Connecticut chapter, so I will join them. In between I'll have a call with the SRVP for Canada. And next week I have other calls with other continents. So it's fabulous with the passion that I have for regions and chapters to be able to meet with way more chapters than I otherwise would have been able. So that's my silver lining of this year. Clearly, way more challenges than silver linings, but I think we still have to look at it optimistically. So circling back to the start of this year, I think we had all sorts of ambitious plans for ASIS to move forward, and then when the pandemic hit, we really had to pivot. And as John mentioned in our earlier chat before the call, I think that our headquarters did a tremendous job in switching to providing online information and providing digital information. And so to me, that it as much as we hate everything that's happening, it also brought a lot of positive things. And what really struck me and what I really much like is the power of our network and our willingness to help each other within ASIS. And I usually say, so going back to my days when I was working with the oil companies and the protection of their petrol stations or gasoline stations, as you say in the US, I regularly sat together with these chief security guys from all these oil companies, and we exchanged modus operandi and best practices in protection and all of these things, and criminological information, etc. We all shared that with each other. Their marketing colleagues would not even be allowed to be in the same street for questions with price fixing and things like that. So our security professionals, our industry is already much more prone to collaborate and work together than many other industries and many other professions. Within ASIS, I think we take that one step further. If you need someone to help you in Japan or in Argentina or in the Netherlands or in Nigeria or whatever, if you need someone, if you need information, I can probably get you the information you need within 24 hours. And I've had so many examples where people suddenly need information or need help. And it's just a matter of reaching out to the right people in our network. And just the mere fact that you are a colleague from ASIS, that you are a fellow member, gives you the information and gives you the support. And that's what I so much appreciate about the ASIS network. Now, the special thing is that this year, I believe it even went a little bit further, because many of us know colleagues that have lost their jobs. Clearly, the worst thing that people have had to go through is the loss of family members, themselves becoming ill, but also after that, clearly the loss of their jobs. And I've seen so many people helping others finding a new job, helping to be connected to the right people, and doing their utmost to help them. And this to me is one of the beautiful things that I've seen happening this year in our community, and that I really appreciate all our members doing. So next week, so today you received my letter of thanks for the year. Next week you will receive another letter from me, and that's another kind letter, but it's also the letter asking you to stay a member and pay your contribution, so we can remain all members and protect the continuity of the organization. But there's also a sentence in there which I really love, and that's our hardship program. And when someone loses their work, they need our network to find a new job. But some of them maybe are not able to remain a member just for financial reasons. So sometimes members drop out because they lost their job. And now with the hardship program that we set up in cooperation with the foundation, or basically it's driven and paid by the foundation, we will pay the membership fee for those that have hardship, that have lost their jobs or have had went bankrupt or whatever trouble they are in. At least we can help them remain a member, help them remain certified, and so we can help each other. And this to me is fabulous. So I really like that. I guess that's it now for me. We still have plenty of time. I could speak for hours, as you hear, but I think it might be nice to have a bit of a conversation. So if you have questions, I can answer questions, or if you want me to address certain topics, then at least I'm sure that the time we have together, I don't speak about the things that you're not interested in. So let's open the floor for questions, remarks. Even complaints are welcome.
Go ahead.
I just had one question. I mean, I don't know if it's a loaded question. So ASIS, it used to stand for American Society of Industrial Security. Is there any talk about maybe changing that? And the reason why I'm asking, I mean, coming from the United States, it's because when people ask me what does ASIS stands for, I'm like, well, it used to stand for this, but now we're just ASIS. And I just know from trying to get other people involved, but also being correct in what the name is, sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge.
Right. Yeah, good question. And yeah, I got the question also often, especially in different countries, clearly. And it is also, I think it also depends on the country. Like in the Netherlands, America or American is viewed as very positive. We are liberated from Nazi Germany in 1945 by American, Canadian, British, and Polish soldiers. So in the Netherlands, it's very widely well respected, and we're still, even after 75 years, we're very grateful for the liberation by American soldiers. And that's also visible on the graves. There's many graves of American soldiers here, and there's projects where school children will take care of the graves. They make sure that on Memorial Day there's a fresh flowers. And they started a project to put a face to all the names. So they basically reach out to American cities if they have graves of a soldier and they don't have a picture yet of that soldier. They'll try to find the ancestors of or family members so they can put the name to that face. Clearly, in other countries, and one country that comes to mind is Serbia, where I was, where I could, the RVP, who is, by the way, not at all anti-American, but he showed me the holes in the ministry that were caused by the missiles that were used in the NATO attacks on Serbia over the war there. So in some of the countries, American is not seen as positive as it's seen in the Netherlands. So when in 2002 I was there, we had our first European conference in Amsterdam, coincidentally, my hometown. And that was when it was announced that the new name for the American Society of Industrial Security was going to be ASIS International. And now we are 18 years later, and still there's many people asking what these letters stand for. Well, they don't really stand for anything. And as so a few years ago, when we really started to reinvent ASIS, we were thinking about a name change, but we also, and it's so difficult to find a good name. So for a while, we had like a projection, a planning to do that in the future. But we also found out it's extremely costly. It's very difficult to find the right name, and very costly to change everything. And not just ASIS as an organization, but also all of the chapters we have, the 240 chapters we have globally, they all have stationery, they have, like you have coins and glasses and things like that. So we wouldn't just make it expensive and difficult for ourselves, but also for all of our chapters. And we were a bit in doubt if that would be more benefit than it would be detrimental. So I think that's a bit the reason why we postponed it. Clearly, when we did it already on a little bit smaller scale a few years ago, when we renamed the annual conference into GSX, the Global Security Exchange. And for a while, we thought maybe also in the future that might be a fitting name for our organization. So we don't know where this will go, but those are a bit like the two trajectories. One is maybe GSX might be a great name for the whole organization in the future, and the second thing is maybe we just need to leave it as it is, because ASIS International is a worldwide well-known name. And so why change it? So that's a bit the two trajectory one. So it's a long answer for a short question, but I hope it helps, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Mike also had a question or a remark.
Yeah, I'd say, Godfried, I was wanted to compliment you, and I don't know how many are aware, but the work that's been done on the guidelines and the standards, and how and the association with like the American Council on Education and the Department of Homeland Security, the relevance that has for us here in the United States to work with those other organizations brings a lot of value to businesses. And I wanted to thank you for and your staff's work in that particular area because it has proven very valuable in assessments and in getting more members involved at our end here in Kansas City. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And I always say, and it's funny because sometimes my US colleagues in the board are more fanatical drivers of becoming global than I am myself. And I always say, you know, and as an example, it is like different languages. I don't believe that doing business in a lot of languages is that important. Yes, it is for Latin American, where you have a large number of chapters, a large area of the world who all speak the same language, or at least, okay, Portuguese and Spanish. And they are also willing and able to contribute themselves to translate a lot of things. So that's doable. And we know that there's quite some members from that areas that don't even speak English or don't speak a lot of English. But for many other languages, it just doesn't make sense. And also, English is the international language of business. And even though as non-native speakers, we don't master the language to the full breadth as native speakers do, we can still communicate rather well with each other. So why should we translate things in German for German chapter, or French for French speaking, maybe from some countries in Africa? And I also think that it changed. When I did business in the early 90s with ExxonMobil now in Esso, and we call them Esso in Germany, I had to speak German because many folks in Germany didn't speak English, or they didn't want to speak English. I did a project 10 years ago, so like 10 years later, and all business, even in Germany, was done in English, because the younger generation in Germany, but also even in France people are now starting to speak English. It's widely accepted as a second language of business. So to me, I think yes, international is important, but let's never forget the size of our membership in the US. And this is also why with the new setup with the regional boards, we also have this North American board of directors that we want to seat to make sure that we have that we nurture and keep that North American, the US and Canadian strength, that we still keep that intact. It's kind of, speaking about language, kind of interesting anecdote. I was speaking on a conference in Poland a few years ago. And I'm used to speaking in a lot of countries, but I hadn't been in Eastern Europe so much. And their accent is quite different than the accent we have in Western Europe or even Northern Europe different. So I spoke, and so I asked one of the hosts if it was difficult to follow me, if my accent wasn't too much bothering for them. And he replied, no, it was very good, way better than these folks from the UK. And I was a bit puzzled, because to me it's like, well, these people from the UK speak beautiful English, but what they did was not adjust to their audience. And so they used their language as if they were speaking for an English audience. So they used a lot of words that were unknown to the audience, while my vocabulary is so much more limited that I own, and we jokingly, we say we all speak Globish, which is a very limited version of English, but we all understand each other because we use the same limited vocabulary. And the English speakers use the full breadth of the language, and I appreciate it, but I don't master it. So that's sometimes also things that you just need to take into account when you do business globally, is to use a more simple version of English, let's say it that way, instead of having to speak to everyone in their own language. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, any more questions, remarks? Otherwise, I have a few more things to say before we wrap up.
I have just one more thing. Is more of a comment and appreciation. So this year, I know that there was a big push for connects, and then the regional members, they're having town halls. It brings a lot of people together and a lot of different ideas. I really appreciate it. It's really good to hear how different chapters are doing things and how they're sharing ideas. There's a few ideas that we've been part of. Bill we were looking at trying to initiate some of the things that we heard, and I think they're from the Caribbean. We got the idea from where trying to get membership up by not charging local fees and maybe having companies paying them, or sponsoring the chapter yourself. And then it was really good dialogue and active dialogue too, where we could discuss these things from a really way beyond our normal borders. And this was pre-COVID, so this wasn't even where we were forced upon us because of COVID. This was something that the ASIS chose to do and really encourage. So I really appreciate it. It's my time as the chair has been invaluable. And then the Connects page, it's pretty powerful too. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, you can step out just for a minute.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Then at least before we finish, I would like to congratulate you all with the 60th anniversary. I believe that the award was delivered. So if you have it, you might be able to show it. I need my reading glass, so that's fabulous to see that. Great, great. Well, congratulations with the celebration, and it was great to hear a little bit about your history. Great to spend some time with you all. Congratulations also for the website of the year award and the honorable mention for the newsletter of the award of the award. And saying that, I just also want to thank John as the chair of the awards committee. We've been both a member of that committee, and it's definitely one of the hardest working committees within ASIS. And if you see the work that the members do under John's leadership, it's an amazing group and very much appreciated. So kudos to you, John. Well done, and thank you for all the hard work in that team.
Well, I appreciate that, Godfried, but the whole point is just like Mike would tell you, running, and we used to have the RVP and the SRVP level, and it's all about the folks that are under you. So it's just like running a chapter. I mean, Rick, you got a great board, you got folks that help you do things, you got committees, and, you know, I appreciate the comments, but, you know, it's having those other 24 folks or those 20 folks that do the work, and you just make sure you guide them and get them there. And that's what makes it successful. So I appreciate the kind words, but it is a lot of work. And like I said, you've been there, but it's having that great group of folks in the room. So thank you, Godfrey. I appreciate that.
Well said.
Excellent. Thank you. And finally, I would say thanks to you all for being a member. Thanks to you all for being a volunteer leader. Mike is the RVP and Rick is the chair, and all of you in other positions within the chapter or the region, and or maybe in communities or other pillars of ASIS. So thank you so much for that. And it was great to spend a little bit of time for you. And whenever you have questions or remarks or complaints from me, please reach out to me. Also, everyone on the board and staff, everyone is really open to good ideas, positive criticism, and it's the ideas that the best practices that we can share, we can bring our great association forward. So thank you all for that.
Godfried, thank you very much for your insightful and inspiring words. I really appreciate you taking your time, especially in your evening time around dinner time there, to spend time with us. Again, I really appreciate it. With that, I believe that's the end of our session today, our meeting today. Thank you very much for attending.
Rick, thanks for everything. Good job.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank